Welcome back, Seeker. You just can't get enough, can you? Always chasing the next whisper, the next world, the next wonder. Perhaps you're in the mood for something a bit different this time. A change of dream, perhaps? Oh, this scroll? Ah, yes, this one's special. A lover's tale tangled in fantasy, mystery, and politics, sharp enough to draw blood. All you have to do is open it and step in.
Most people think the world is made of two parts, what we know and what we don't. What we don't know usually gets written off as myth, legends, bedtime stories with fangs and claws. But those people haven't seen what I've seen, haven't lived what I've lived. My name is Romulan Starling, and I work for the NHE, the Non-Human Embassy. Sounds like fringe sci-fi, right? That's intentional. Because the NHE is a ghost in the global machine, a secret diplomatic body hidden deep within the world's governments, operating far from the eyes of the public. Most civilians don't even know it exists. Most can't. The supernatural hides in plain sight, but only those born with the sight, like me, can truly perceive it. And these days, there are so few of us left that the line between reality and legend has all but vanished for everyone else. The truth? It's all real. Vampires, pixies, warpers, dragons, creatures older than civilization, hiding in plain sight or tucked into folds of reality where science can't reach. During World War II, the desperate governments of the world turned to the old myths looking for an edge. And they found one. Some creatures sided with the Allies, others with the Axis. Most watched us from the shadows, unmoved by our timelines and bloodshed. When the war ended, the world knew it had barely avoided catastrophe. So the NHE was formed, not to expose the truth, but to contain it. It's a diplomatic sector, but trust me, diplomacy is a relative term when you're brokering peace between beings who see humans as either a necessary evil or a vintage snack. It's dangerous work. You walk a tightrope every day. One wrong phrase, one slip of the tongue, and you're either cursed, glamored, or worse. And despite the name, I'm human. One of the very few serving as an unaffiliated ambassador. Most humans who work within the NHE system have aligned themselves with factions through political deals, marriages, or secret magical rites. Some have even changed their very nature. Werewolves are more open about this, often turning human women who marry into the pack. Men rarely survive the process, but I've never chosen a side because I can't. I'm the last in a long line of seers, humans born with a hereditary gift that allows us to perceive non-human entities as they truly are. Long ago, the sight was more common. Seers once advised kings and counseled courts. But as the industrial age surged forward, belief faded, and with it, so did the sight. These days, those born with it are rare. Some seers still exist, scattered and surviving. But my family, the Starlings, are the last who have never aligned themselves with any NHE faction. No bargains, no blood pacts, no enchanted marriages, just generations of neutrality held firm through diplomacy, discipline, and iron-willed tradition. Because of that, we're respected and feared. Even the werewolf factions, especially the shifters, have offered to protect us over the years, despite knowing we'd never accept. As a child, I attended embassy sessions with my grandparents and played in the margins of power. My parents raised me on the histories, languages, and politics of the NHE world until they were killed in a magical catastrophe too old and dangerous for anyone to fully explain. After their deaths, the old Fey King took me in. He said I carried echoes of a magic humans were never meant to lose. He taught me how to shield my mind, deflect glamour, unravel curses, called me almost fae. There is no higher praise in their culture. I became an ambassador at 17, taking my place alongside my grandparents. By 20, they'd retired. I'd studied in the Starling archives, the most complete record of NHE culture in human hands. My name rose quickly, sharp, diplomatic, unclaimed. A seer who belonged to no one. Today, I was preparing for the vampire vote, an event that happened only once every few centuries, if that. They were electing a new embassy head and the leader of the vampiric council, a role equivalent to a president, if you can imagine a president who drank blood and had the political instincts of a spider. I was chatting with the outgoing president and his son, quietly discussing the two candidates. One of them, Soren Moreau, was a younger vampire, a half-blood, technically, born of a vampire and a human, a controversial lineage that made the purists sneer behind closed doors, calling him a halfling. But he had the people's love, earned through years of activism. He was magnetic, unpredictable, and disturbingly charming, not a typical career politician. That scared the old guard. The other candidate, Alden Devereaux. A relic of a bloodier time, a general from the war known for cleansing campaigns against civilian populations, vampiric nationalism dressed up in ceremonial robes. He wanted to bring back blood hunting as a sport, outlawed for a century, and now being dangled like a campaign promise. The room was tense, split. Then, he walked in. Soren Moreau. He made his way through the room like he owned it, nodded to some, smirked at others, said little. But he kept looking at me, like I was something he'd been searching for. He winked. I stared back, confused. We'd never met. I would have remembered that face, sharp cheekbones, rich brown skin with a slight shimmer under the chandelier lights, and a scent like amber white oil mixed with danger. He finally reached me, leaned in, kissed both cheeks like we were old friends from some European court, and then whispered in my ear.
I apologize for the trouble I'm about to cause.
Before I could even react, he turned, tapped his glass, and raised his voice.
I hereby claim this human, as is my vampiric birthright. Those who harm a human are no ally of mine.
The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, outrage rippled like a wave crashing into marble. I stood there frozen. Claimed. Old vampiric law. Ancient. Rarely invoked. Originally created to protect a human blood source. A possession more than a person. But in modern times, claiming someone was symbolic. A declaration. It meant love. It meant you were mine. And I'd never even spoken to him before today. He took my hand and led me to sit beside him as the final votes were being tallied. I didn't resist. I couldn't. My heart was pounding loud enough to drown out my common sense. I gave him a look. He had gone mad. I whispered angrily, "Have you entirely taken leave of your senses?" He winked again. Cool. Calculated. Like every breath he took had been planned years in advance. Then came the announcement.
The votes have been tallied. By the will of the council, Soren Moreau shall henceforth serve as our next head and ambassador. May your reign usher in a new era, worthy of our legacy and blood.
He'd won. The room clapped, some genuinely, others politely, a few with tight, murderous eyes. He stood and gestured for me to join him on stage. My body moved before my brain did. I stood beside him, half aware of the dozens of eyes dissecting my every movement. I was no longer just a human ambassador. I was his. He raised his hand to quiet the room.
This marks a shift in the society of vampires. As you know, I have always advocated for us. However, alongside my newly claimed human ambassador, will lead us into a new era, one where humans and vampires are equals.
Polite applause followed, but the murmurs underneath said everything. Lines had been drawn, alliances questioned, old blood grudges stirred. And me? I was caught in the middle of it all, standing next to a vampire who had just changed my life in a single sentence. Later, backstage, when the storm of political ceremony had faded into shadows and murmurs, I found Moreau alone near the balcony, framed by moonlight in a stained glass window that made his silhouette look mythic. Outside, I could hear the growing hum of reporters, like flies against the embassy's marble skin, buzzing with scandal, with suspicion, with the scent of something unprecedented. He didn't turn when I walked in, just stood there, glass of something dark and ancient in his hand, like he'd expected me all along. I didn't bother with diplomacy. "What the hell was that?" I snapped, my voice sharp with panic, confusion, betrayal, and something else I wasn't ready to name. "You don't even know me." That got his attention. He turned slowly, face unreadable, shadows from the glass playing tricks across his features. There was no apology in his expression, just calm intensity, the kind that made you forget how to breathe. He stepped closer, slowly like a predator who didn't want to startle its prey, like he already knew I wouldn't run. The scent hit me first, warm amber, spicy and familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. It wasn't just the cologne, he smelled like it, like old secrets and something holy.
"I do know you, Miss Starling,"
he said, voice smooth but edged like a blade.
"Maybe not the way you think, but I've watched, listened. I've seen the way you stand when you're the only human in the room. I've watched you keep your composure when the sirens try to seduce you into agreeing to sanctions. I've read your reports. Your words are precise, tactical. Fire hidden in silk."
My mouth opened, but nothing came out. He took another step forward, closing the distance. I could feel the chill of his aura, the unnatural stillness vampires carry like a second skin.
"I saw how you handled the Kelpie delegation last year,"
he continued. I swallowed hard, trying to hold on to my anger. It was slipping. "So what?" I forced out. "You watched me work and decided to make a political statement out of me. You claimed me in front of the entire Vampire Council. You painted a target on my back with a smile." He smiled again, slow and devastating, like he knew exactly how dangerous that grin was.
"Yes,"
he said.
"I did."
He set his glass down on a carved obsidian table and leaned closer, voice low now, nearly a whisper.
"But not just to make a point."
I stared at him, trying to read between the lines. He was a politician now, a damn good one. But this didn't feel like strategy anymore. Not fully. Moreau looked down at me, not with pity or ownership, but with a kind of ancient reverence.
"I did it because I wanted to,"
he said.
"Because I chose you. Not as a symbol, as a person. Because I know what's coming. We need women like you. And because I will protect you from the council, from the world."
His voice softened, almost too quiet to hear.
"From myself, if I have to."
I froze. That last part, from himself, that scared me more than the rest. Because it meant he wasn't lying. It meant he saw himself as something dangerous, even to me, especially to me. My heart stuttered in my chest, like it couldn't decide between fear and something reckless and warm blooming under my ribs. I hated that feeling, how quickly he'd gotten under my skin, like he'd been waiting there all along. "I didn't ask for this," I whispered.
"No,"
he said.
"You didn't, but I did."
Outside, I could still hear the reporters. Somewhere down the hall, a council member slammed a door. The world was already shifting beneath us, and I hadn't even caught my breath, This wasn't just politics anymore. This wasn't just diplomacy gone wrong. This was something else, something messy, something dangerous, something that felt like the beginning of a storm I hadn't agreed to walk into but couldn't walk away from either. We didn't have time to breathe. Barely an hour after his victory speech and his very public, very uninvited claim of me, we were whisked down a glittering hallway lined with embassy security and shoved into a glass-walled press chamber. The lights were already hot, the crowd already bloodthirsty. Dozens of NHE representatives sat in the balcony rows above the press pit. Dryads wrapped in moss and gold, sylphs with invisible wings shimmering faintly in the artificial light, a Gorgon delegation in mirrored veils, and front row, center, a small but imposing party from the shifting court. Werewolves, the old kind, the kind that grew up with war in their blood and suspicion baked into their bones. I adjusted my blazer, heartbeat thudding against the microphone pinned to my lapel. I wasn't supposed to be up here. I was supposed to be behind the curtain, advising and translating cultural nuance, not standing beside a newly elected vampire leader who had unilaterally linked our names together like a goddamn fate bond. He leaned slightly toward me before the cameras rolled.
Try to look like you're not planning my assassination.
Try not to make it necessary, I muttered back. The press coordinator, a nimble telepath with webbed ears and a permanent expression of fatigue, cleared her throat and stepped up to the podium.
Today marks a shift in vampire leadership.
She began smoothly.
But due to unexpected developments during the announcement, we've opened the floor to questions from both the press and fellow embassy representatives. Please be respectful.
I could practically hear the claws coming out. The first question came from a human journalist. Blonde, young, desperate for a soundbite.
Soren Moreau, you claimed a human ambassador today during a major political event. Was that part of your campaign strategy? Or was it personal?
A murmur rippled through the crowd. He answered without hesitation.
It was both.
Another wave of reaction, gasps, a hiss from the shifting court rep. I didn't speak, not yet. I was still technically observer, though at this point that title was laughable. A dryad from the Earth Consortium raised her hand, face carved from bark and tension.
Do you understand what you've done, Mr. Moreau? This claim binds Ms. Starling, a human representative, to vampire interests. That violates several interspecies neutrality clauses.
And protects her.
He countered, gaze unwavering.
From threats that would exploit her neutrality.
Like you, his tone seemed to say. That's when the werewolf stood. Alpha Lysar. He was massive, easily 6'5", his presence radiating like storm pressure. His suit was dark, impeccably pressed, and somehow still looked like it would split if he exhaled too hard. Silver-streaked hair tied back in a low knot, golden eyes glowing beneath his heavy brow. His people flanked him like a wall of teeth and tradition.
The claim is a provocation,
he said, voice carrying easily across the room.
The humans are not yours to use. She was neutral. She was safe. You've destroyed that.
My fists clenched at my sides. I'd had enough. I took a breath and stepped forward, past the podium. Ambassador Lysar, I said clearly, I appreciate your concern, but let me correct something. I wasn't safe before this. Neutrality isn't immunity. Every day I walk into these meetings as the only unaligned human. No clan, no court, no council to back me. I've had to negotiate terms while being threatened, glamored, and underestimated. That quieted the murmurs for a moment. Lysar's golden eyes narrowed, but he let me continue. I didn't ask to be claimed, I said, glancing briefly, pointedly at the vampire beside me. And I haven't yet decided what that claim means to me. But I am still the U.S. ambassador to the non-human embassy, and I remain neutral to all NHE factions. I turned, letting my voice rise with conviction. My job is to represent humanity, not to serve vampire politics, not to be a symbol of rebellion or a romantic token or anyone's bargaining chip. I will continue to advocate for the protection, rights, and respect of humans in this embassy, just as I always have, whether I've been claimed or not. Silence. Real silence. Even the press stilled. Even the sylphs quit fluttering their wings. Lesar studied me with an unreadable expression. Then, with slow, deliberate grace, he nodded once.
Spoken like a true ambassador,
He said with a hint of approval.
but you'd best make sure your new proximity doesn't compromise your voice or your scent. You may not smell like blood yet, but we'll be watching.
He sat. The vampire at my side exhaled like he'd been holding a breath for centuries.
That
He whispered under his breath.
was art.
I'm not here to make art, I muttered, backing away from the mic. I'm here to keep the peace,
For now.
he said.
But you were born for more than that.
I ignored him, or tried to. But my hands were still shaking, and part of me wasn't sure if it was from adrenaline or the weight of what I'd just done, because I had spoken like an ambassador. But somehow I didn't feel like one anymore.
And so the dream fades. But you're still here, aren't you? Hearts racing, thoughts tangled, wondering what's real and what's only imagined. That's how it always is, Seeker. Come back when you're ready. The library never closes. There's always another scroll, another book, waiting for you. Till next time.
Hello, Seeker. It's me, the Dreamer. Thanks for wandering into the Library of Dreams with me tonight. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow dreamers. You can find us on Spotify and YouTube under the Library of Dreams. Until next time, sweet dreams!